Hello and welcome to Breaking Ground on iPropertyRadio with myself, Carol Tallon, the show where we chat to industry experts to get a view of what's happening on the ground and to learn about new trends emerging across the construction industry. This show is brought to you in partnership with Place Engage, a data-driven platform for more successful public consultation and community engagement for your next development project. Today I'm delighted to be joined by Dr. Aidan Kenny, Apprenticeship Manager at the School of Architecture, Building and the Environment at TU Dublin. Aidan, you're very welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Carol, and I'm delighted to be on your show this morning.
We have discussed the issue of apprenticeships in lots of different contexts over the last year or two, so I'm really excited that we get an opportunity to talk to you today, but I feel like I almost can't start the conversation about apprenticeships without referring to the World Skills Competition that has just been held in the RDS. So you might just, talk to us about the experience there and then maybe tell us a little bit about the work that you're doing.
Yeah, so the colleagues in the technological university sector, the IoT sector and the education and training board sector have been working hard over the last year to develop the Ireland Skills Competition in the RDS, and they've achieved some record numbers. Over 30,000 young people have registered and attended the competition, and there's over 30 skills on display, as well as all of the education sector, the education and training boards and the employers have stalls setting out, what they do and explaining to young people and indeed their parents about different roles in both the construction industry, the engineering industry, but mainly related to apprenticeship and skills areas. And then we've also got competitions such as catering, painting and decorating, the engineering, welding, and, from all of the modern electric cars were on display as well. And I think the students that attended, particularly the employers and colleagues in the TU sector, actually took apart the cars and showed students what was under the hood, so it was really informative for students and parents. So career opportunities in construction, engineering, they're wide open for young people these days, and apprenticeship is a very accessible route where you actually get paid while you learn, and that's unique. So if you're doing a degree, you have to pay your fees, you have to pay your accommodation and everything else, but the apprenticeship model, the employer is paying you, and then when you're doing your off-the-job training, you're getting paid as well. So it's a good way to learn by doing, by actually experiencing the world of work, and then linking the theory and practice together by going to education as well at the same time. And your qualification is recognised on the Irish National Qualification System and the European framework of qualifications as well. So when you receive your national qualifications, you have a license. You're a mobile worker and you can work throughout Europe. So it's definitely an opportunity.
I'm delighted to see the resurgence of the apprenticeship model, because I know certainly when I was in secondary school, kind of going back 20, 25 years, it was actually falling out of fashion almost at that stage, with the majority of people being funneled into college and I suppose more academic third level opportunities at that stage. And actually we can see over the decades that dropout rates have increased, that essentially it was failing to recognize the different, not just the different personality types that people would have, but the different styles where people like to learn and the different environments in which people can really thrive. And that's quite personal, and so it's something that I feel we overcorrected in a way, and now we're starting to see this roll back. But in terms of the work that you're doing as the apprenticeship manager, where are apprenticeships in terms of the reputation? Are you having to convince secondary school students, their teachers, their parents? What's the awareness out there at the moment? What's your starting point for this role?
Yeah, I think Carol, you're absolutely right. So parents are key to assisting their children look at careers, look at what the options are, what's a sustainable long-term career, what career has benefits and will have financial reward. So you're absolutely right. The parents have a massive influence when a young person is making up their mind to either go to a degree program, a further education and training program, or an apprenticeship. And I think, in fairness, both the European Commission, through the European Alliance for Apprenticeship, and our own minister, through the Department of Further and Higher Education, Research and Science, have looked at this, and they have been quite successful in promoting apprenticeship as an equally valued route. And I think that the minister has opened up tertiary education, which allows a seamless transition from further education and training colleges to higher education. It's outside of the point system, so that allows young people to try out different areas for a year in a college of further education and then move into higher education on a degree program, which is good. But the minister, the HEA and Solus have been very successful in promoting apprenticeship through generation apprenticeship. And they've been so successful that the numbers of registrations have massively outstripped capacity at this stage. So we're looking at, and it's a very healthy situation to be, expansion, which is really good, really good. So apprenticeship, we have 25 craft-based apprenticeships. So that's all your apprenticeship, from electricians to plumbers, carpentry and joinery, wood manufacturing, finishing, painting and decorating. So I suppose, automotive trades that would be thought of as construction, engineering type of trades, aircraft maintenance and so forth. But with the new consortium approach, we've also got additional apprenticeship, and these run from insurance to logistics to dentistry. So there's so many different new apprenticeship opportunities opening up. And also, apprenticeship previously could only get a qualification at level 6 of our national framework.
Mm-hmm.
Now, with the new consortium-based apprenticeship, you can get qualifications right up to level 9, a master's level. So the opportunity for apprenticeship has changed completely. And I think we're moving more towards a European-style norm, whereby it's recognised that work-based learning, young people who work in employment are learning while they're working, and that should be recognised. And then there's a formal part where they go and learn the theory behind the practice. And I think that's really starting to catch on. Young people are starting to look at this, and they're seeing that an apprenticeship may be just a step in, and then afterwards, within the European Lifelong Learning Framework, you can go on and study, and you can do your degree, you can do your master's and so forth, starting off as an apprenticeship. So the doors that may have been closed previously are now wide open. And I think the value of apprenticeship and the status of apprenticeship has been really highlighted. Now, in fairness to all the employers who have engaged in the process, they're offering quality career paths now for apprentices, and that's unique. And that was something that was highlighted at the RDS this week with the employer stalls. They were there, they were shown young people, well, this is your career path, this is the kind of work you were doing, this is the option. So you have young electricians there starting off working in Ireland, and all of a sudden they're working in Sweden. And it's for the same company, but that company is giving them these excellent opportunities to work in different European countries and indeed internationally as well, all based on the apprenticeship model. And I think that suits some young people.
Of course. Of course, it makes sense that people have a different style of learning, a different way that they want to work. But I'm glad you've actually addressed there the perceived value and the status of apprenticeships, because that's something that had faltered. So actually that's a necessary part of the rebalancing. And in fact, it makes absolute sense, because if you look at it in the context of equality, a quality career involves lifelong learning. Nobody's coming out with a degree and that's the last thing they learn. That would make them a very limited employee or team member, or you're no longer looking at this in the context of where you've learned, or what you've learned is what you bring to the workplace. It has to be that coachability, that willingness to learn, a little bit of independent learning, on the job learning, but that's a lifelong. And I don't know any career that doesn't involve that now. But what I'm really curious about is, we know that a career in modern construction doesn't look like what it looked like 20 or 30 years ago. How accurate, when you're speaking to would-be apprentices, how accurate is their perception of what a career in construction actually is?
Yeah. So when I started out a long time ago, so I started out in construction. As an apprentice, by the way, so that's how I started. So my view at the time was, it was kind of more manual skills focus, hard work, which it was true at the time. But things have changed so much since then. So when you go onto a modern construction site, I mean, it's nothing like it was previously. Health and safety is to the fore. The well-being of staff and apprentices is on employers' minds. And like, employers have funded different projects to support the well-being of staff, and they're out there, like the Lighthouse project and things like that. So the employers are really keen, from what I can see, to support their staff and provide support systems, not only for skills development, for their knowledge development, but also for their personal well-being and their health and safety in work. So it's really changed. But just for an example, so previously, when you went on a building site, there was no, well, when I was there was no mobile phones in the States a long time ago. And we were still using chalk and blackboards. But nowadays, an apprentice comes in, it's a completely digital environment. Their mobile phone is part of their toolbox. So in construction, BIM is there. The apprentice can log in through their phone. They can see what their work package is for that day. They can see if it's pipe work or if it's electrical work. They can see, okay, I have to service this part of the building. So they have all the modeling and drawings on their phone. I've heard from one employer that HR, when they were recruiting apprentices, would ask, do you play video games? And I said, that's unusual. Why would you ask that? And he said, if they play video games, they're used to the virtual environment. So if they're coming to us and they're learning how to run cables or run pipes, and we're putting them in BIM or another type of virtual environment, they can see it, they can understand that environment, and then they can apply it to the real situation. And I thought that's a very interesting way of looking at it.
Yeah. Aidan, I'm not happy to hear that at all, because actually I thought, no, and I'll tell you why. We're actually recruiting. We're involved in a project that involves bringing proposed developments to life, and we were trying to tap into this secret skill set. So we were actually going off trying to hire video gamers. And even experienced users, not even games developers. And we were trying to tap into those as a secret cohort. So I'm not happy to know now that the construction industry has tapped into that. But I love a full circle moment, because I think it really tells the story of a career in construction. So you mentioned there, obviously I've introduced you as the Apprenticeship Manager at the School of Architecture, Building and the Environment at TU Dublin. But you mentioned there you started out as an apprentice.
Yes. Absolutely.
In what craft?
Yeah, so I was a plasterer, and I worked for a company called GNR Plastering at the time. And Dublin Castle was actually being renovated at the time, so I'd done served a lot of my time there. It was kind of mold work, but there was also new methods at the time, which was the metal systems as well. Um,
Can you take us through your career then? Because I think this is really interesting. No, but
yeah,
this is exactly the message we're trying to get out, that a
yeah,
career in construction isn't what you think it is. And it can be lots of different things where you're encouraged not just to follow your interests, but really lean into some areas or passions that you might
absolutely.
have. So can you talk us how kind of you went from being a plasterer and working on one of
Yeah.
your early jobs there, Dublin Castle, to the position you hold today?
Yeah, so, well, I think a key point was Bolton Street. Now, I know we're called the Technological University Dublin now, but at the time it was the Dublin Institute of Technology, but we just knew it as Bolton Street. And we used to do 1 day release a week. So I think I had Fridays in Bolton Street at the time. And the staff in there, they'd all come from either an apprenticeship or a work-based background. And they treated us with a lot of respect. They encouraged us to go on and study more. So it was while I was in Bolton Street, I started doing some part-time courses in the evening time. I started doing additional City and Guilds that were offered at the time, as well as the Department of Education exam, which was the national craft exam for apprenticeship at the time. And now that's changed to the new standard-based system. But they always encourage us to look at education and pursue more. And I think that was part of the vocational educational training approach at the time. Um, so yeah, I done some evening courses. I also had some interest outside in community and community work, so I was doing voluntary work as well. And I got the interest to go back to education, and so I started doing some diplomas. I was minute done a diploma in youth studies and community development for some of the voluntary work. And once I start getting back into the education system and realizing, the barriers that are there are barriers that you're making yourself. That we all have the capacity to engage in education and training at wherever level we feel comfortable doing. And the support there from the staff in these institutes, the public funded institutes, the staff are there to support learners. So once that kind of barriers started to fall, then I decided, well, okay, I want to get some more professional training, and I've done a degree in psychology and sociology. And then I've done the master's in education, training and management, and then eventually ended up through support from DIT, because they ran, I started working in DIT part-time, but they ran an excellent program to support staff to do advanced qualifications. And actually they paid for my fees to do the doctorate in education in Trinity College Dublin, which was a challenge to do, an excellent program. Yeah, it was a challenge, but because doing the degree, the master, you're building up capacity. When it comes to the stage, you're ready to do it. Um, and then I kind of looking back and say, okay, well, that was my journey. How do I get that message across to young people today? Look, it's all open for you. You can start here, but you don't know where you're going to end up. You can be a CEO of a company. You can be a politician. Lots of people have started through apprenticeship, doing through different routes. But I go back to the same values of my colleagues in vocational education and training. Education is the pathway, and we're here to help. Um, so I'd say all colleagues in TUD, we look after apprentices when they come in, and we do encourage them to pursue and think of when they're qualified, moving. Well, you don't have to move, but just keep your qualifications relevant and up to date. And we're looking at that. Indeed, I think I was saying we had a European Erasmus group over of teachers, employers. It's a mixed group. There was 30 people over, national agencies, and they wanted to see what we were doing here. We were looking at actually green skills and micro credentials. So we're looking at short courses that are relevant to the green skills area and the opportunities that's there. And indeed, we brought them to the RDS, and they were kind of blown away by what they've seen in the RDS and the Ireland skills. But they were kind of saying, well, okay, so for there, and these are colleagues from Sweden, Spain, Latvia, Bulgaria. They were saying, okay, how can we do what you're doing here? They saw there was something unique happening here, and I think sometimes the Irish education and training system and a whole system, from second level teachers to further education and training vocational teachers and higher ed, sometimes we don't value our achievements. We take it for granted, but I think we are really at a kind of cutting edge point. I think we have the support from the minister and his department. The HEA is providing funding, SOLAS is providing funding. So I think there's a lot of opportunities for us to really kind of push this out. And I think the whole area of micro credentials and small chunks of accredited programs that can be stacked together can assist workers, not just apprentices, but workers who are lifelong learners, build up qualifications while they're in work. They're accessible and flexible, but are relevant to the workplace, and that can assist them in their career paths.
Yeah. Aidan, thank you so much for sharing that with us, because actually that really is kind of a full circle moment. And look, just to reiterate that point you made, because I'd like for that to be one of the key takeaways from today, that education is absolutely the pathway. It's absolutely the pathway, however you choose to do it.
Yes.
And it doesn't matter how long it takes you to do it. I think it's really interesting that part of your learning journey took you kind of to psychology and sociology. That's probably how you're in a position to really, in a very empathetic way, bring apprentices into this journey now. And again, it bears repeating that point you made there, that barriers, that so many of the barriers are the ones we put there ourselves. And
Absolutely.
I think it can take a certain amount of learning to even come to that conclusion for people. So maybe there's a journey to get to even that far. But I suppose, Aidan, before we finish up today, how can people get involved? Because one of the things we're always trying to do is showcase what a career in what a contemporary career in construction looks like. But how can people who maybe aren't familiar just get involved?
Yeah, I think, and I think we also need to, and the European Commission and I know TUD and the minister have been pushing for this. So we want to broaden the participation base in apprenticeship. Currently, young girls, females, their level of participation in apprenticeship is quite low. We want to expand that. Apprenticeship is there for everyone. And it's a quality career path with a recognized qualification. So we're trying to break down the barriers there. There's been some good initiatives at second level with career guidance councils and engaging with schools and parents, saying, look, apprenticeship is not just for males. It's for everybody. So we'd like to get that message across, and I think colleagues in TUD, Jennifer Bourne on that, they've been doing excellent work on promoting female participation in apprenticeship. And that's crucial. That's something, and I think the employers are supporting this. The employers are they're aware, okay, if there's different conditions that need to be put in place in the workplace, they're putting them in place. So, I think we really need to push that our apprenticeship is open to boys and girls, men and women. It's completely open, and it's a quality career path. Two, your level of qualification is recognised at our national qualifications framework and the European qualifications framework. So not only have you got access to progression routes in Ireland, you can travel anywhere you want in the European Union, which is a brilliant opportunity. It's a passport to work on any construction site throughout Europe. And then three, it's a career path to move into management posts or expert posts or highly technical posts, or become self-employed, because you can become self-employed as well. And that's a real option these days, because the construction sector is booming. Housing for all, the targets of over 33,000 units a year for up until 2030. That's massive, and that's changed the way we're using materials, the way we design units, the work process we use. So, for example, not all construction is done on a construction site now. It can be done in prefabrication and large technological centers. So the way they build a Tesla car, we're going to be building houses like that very, very soon. It's all done, prefabricated and put up on site. So we need new apprenticeships to deal with that. We need new apprenticeships in energy, new apprenticeships in retrofitting, all the green technology in water management. And then also we need apprenticeships at management level for risk assessment, for quality assurance, for advice on all these new technologies. So there's so many opportunities that will be available for young people in new apprenticeship areas. And the first thing that we're asking employers, okay, so what skills do you need for 5 years' time? Because if we start now, the apprenticeship is going to qualify in 4 to 5 years' time. We want to give them the relevant skills now, so they're prepared to go into the workplace as soon as they qualify.
Yeah, the future-proofing element is so important. And look, I'm conscious that there are so many opportunities. Where's the starting point? Is there a central website, or where?
So the National Apprenticeship Office is now up and running. So you can look at their website, the National Apprenticeship Office. You can look at the SOLAS website, which has a lot of information on it. Or if you type Generation Apprenticeship, that will bring you onto the 3 sites and you get all that information. So the key point for an apprentice, you need an employer first. So start looking at the employers in your area or region and say, look, I'd like to become an apprentice. And they register you with SOLAS. That's a key thing, because for a formal apprenticeship, you need to be registered and the employer needs to be registered. So good quality employers, they're all registered. They're available on the SOLAS website. You'll see them there. And hopefully the linkage with the CAO, that will be up and running, and you'll be able to go through that process as well. So, but they're the first point of call. So Generation Apprenticeship, type into any search engine, SOLAS, any search engine, or put in the National Apprenticeship Office into any search engine, and you'll get all the starting details.
Super. Thank you so much, Aidan, for taking us through that today, and indeed for sharing your own story, which is just so interesting. And it's exactly the message that we want to be getting out, that right now a career in contemporary construction doesn't look like it did 10, 20, 30 years ago. And there are so many opportunities that are worth exploring. And by the way, we've talked about apprenticeships maybe at very early stage careers, but obviously this is something that's worth considering, and a career in construction is something that's worth considering. Absolutely. At any stage of your career. So Thank you so much for that. That was Dr. Aidan Kenny, Apprenticeship Manager at the School of Architecture, Building and Engineering at TU Dublin. And that's all we've time for today. My thanks to show producer Carol Tallon and to the production team at Hear Me Roar Media. Also thanks to Place Engage for making these conversations possible. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to subscribe to the podcast and check out some of our other real estate and construction shows on iPropertyRadio. And thank you indeed for tuning in. We'll catch you on the next episode of Breaking Ground on iProperty Radio.